The question. Xanthi Mosley, please. Xanthi Mosley.
Who would be worse off if the marriage breaks up, England or Scotland?
Who would be worse off if the marriage breaks up, England or Scotland? Kelvin MacKenzie.
Well, I think that, to be truthful, I think that David Cameron is playing a very cunning game. I don't think he's in favour of unity at all. And in fact, he'd be absolutely nuts from his perspective to be in favour of unity. Scotland has 41 Labour MPs. They disappear in a trice. And that would then leave to England being a Conservative-controlled administration for as long as the eye can see. So he's winning. He's saying, oh, I want you to all be unified. But actually, behind his back, he's saying to his colleagues, the quicker we dump the jocks, the better. Isn't that right? And when you think of the advantage that any politician would make over any other politician at anything else, this time is fantastic. He would have an inbuilt Conservative majority forever and a day.
And that's not true. According to the psephologists, who we have to bow to on these things, it's only about once since the war that a Labour government has needed Labour votes in Scotland, Labour seats in Scotland to stay in government. Only Cameron this time in 2010 would not have needed to form a coalition if you wipe out all the Scottish MPs.
Well, yes.
But every Labour government has had a majority in England.
Right. Don't take away Kelvin's dreams.
But hold on a second.
I know, but I mean, he talks like... I'm just playing Leveson. I'm just playing Leveson. Where do you get this stuff from?
I tell you what, I'm going to have a word with my researcher. The point is that Labour would be massively under the cosh. And of course, if you reverse the idea and ask the English, do they wish to have these rather recalcitrant neighbours who seem to be doing rather well at the expense of the English, the free prescriptions, the free university places for their people, but not for our people? I think you'd probably find it go 70-30 in the other direction. Personally, I wish the Scots every success. I wish them the success as an independent country. I do not believe we need unity in order to conduct ourselves in a reasonable manner. Scotland's a lovely place, and I think they should have their own independence. I'm a massive admirer of Alex Salmond, the only politician in my lifetime who's had one policy and stuck to it. So God bless you, Alex. Let's have your free country.
OK.
I was relying on a bit of jock bashing from Kelvin to send support for independence through the roof. You've disappointed me, Kelvin.
No, yes, I've just decided. Well, it's David. He ruined my argument. Right.
Well, that was the only argument you had, was it?
It is, yes.
Oh, I see. OK. Now, Nicola Sturgeon.
I think we'd
Who'll be worse off?
I think we'd both be better off. Scotland would get to stand on our own 2 feet, take responsibility. England, it's often said, would lose a surly lodger and gain a very good neighbour. England would no longer have...
You see yourself as a surly lodger in the...
some people do, I don't, but other people... I'm talking about Kelvin again.
I do.
But England would no longer have Scottish MPs like Douglas in the House of Commons voting to impose tuition fees on English students when he can't do it in Scotland because the Scottish Parliament has ensured that tuition for Scottish students is free. After independence, England and Scotland will be the best of friends, the closest of allies, and I think we'll both be better off. And perhaps Scotland, on occasion, can show a progressive alternative to some of the policies in Westminster from the Tory Liberal coalition. For example, we're not privatising our National Health Service. We've shown the way in other things as well, banning smoking in public places. We're taking tough action on minimum pricing for alcohol. We care for our elderly with free personal care. So sometimes we can show the better alternative.
At our expense, Nicola, at the English expense.
Scotland's not subsidised at all. Scotland pays her way.
Okay,
and I won't let anybody say any different.
All right, I'll ask you to pause there and see whether Douglas Alexander would say different. Scotland pays its way, and they show a better example on many issues than Labour or the Tories in England.
Listen, I think both Scotland and England would be diminished if we see the breakup of Britain in the next 3 years. Why do I say that? Of course, there are issues of accountancy. I believe that we all benefit from sharing risks, rewards and resources in this multinational, multi-ethnic, multicultural union of ours. But this is not an issue of accountancy. It's far more profound than that. This is about what we believe and who we are. I am proudly and passionately Scottish, but I have never believed to build up Scotland you have to break up Britain. It is not simply that our parents and grandparents fought together against fascism and then worked together to build a National Health Service. It's not simply that we share common institutions from the monarchy and the armed forces to the BBC and to the National Health Service. It is, I believe, a quintessentially modern idea that we work together, that we are stronger together and would be weaker apart in the 21st century. And that's why I think it's important that we reject a politics of grudge and grievance and narrow nationalism on whichever side of the border we find it, and make common cause and say in the 21st century we're stronger together and we'd be weaker apart.
Man up there at the back. You say.
Nicola Sturgeon makes a very impassioned case for Scottish independence, so I'm slightly confused why they're trying to delay the referendum to 2014.
So am I.
I'd put forward the point that it's down to the opinion polls which show that support for Scottish independence is at 38%, and you want to take the long-term case forward and have the referendum in 2014.
I'll let you into secret. The reason we've gone for autumn 2014 is we think Scotland's going to win the World Cup in the summer of 2014. You know, back in the real world, there's two reasons why.
It's probably safe then.
There's two reasons why we've said autumn 2014. The first was it was an election commitment. We said the referendum would be in the second half of this Scottish.
But it wasn't in your manifesto.
Hold on a
was
second,
it?
Douglas.
It wasn't in your manifesto.
It was a commitment given by the First Minister. He made
4 days
it
before the
very,
election.
He made it very clear. I don't think there was many people.
4 days
anybody
before
in
the
Scotland
election, he
who
suddenly
didn't
said
know
it would be
about
in the
that
second
when
half.
we
You thought you might win.
Well, it was a commitment we made in the election, the second half of the parliamentary
Right.
term. Now, it might be a bit of a novel concept for politicians to keep their promises, with the Liberals saying no increase in tuition fees and then doing it. But we think it's a good idea to keep the promises
Come
we
to the
make
SNP
to the
point.
electorate. Well, the other point is a practical point. You know, we're about to consult on the arrangements for the referendum. We're going to have legislation over the course of next year. We have a convention in Scotland. Back in 2007, the Scottish Parliament elections were a bit of an administrative disaster. Douglas was actually in charge of them, but we won't go there just now. And there was a report, and that report said there has to be 6 months between legislation for an election or a referendum and that taking place. We don't want to coincide with the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. Autumn 2014 is when it's going to be, and let the people of Scotland decide.
You're frightened.
Well, let's have the debate on the substance.
But we've been
I'd be
having
delighted.
the debate for 40 years
Well, I'd
in
be
Scotland. The
delighted
border
to
question
debate.
dominates. Do
I
you think
think-
the Scottish
look-
people aren't intelligent enough to reach a decision? You're like a doctor who says, I've got the perfect cure for your illness, but I'm not going to give it to you for 2 years.
And what's
This is
wrong
what
in,
you've been
what's wrong in
arguing
waiting?
for.
What's the problem, Douglas Alexander? It's a big issue. What's the
Because-
problem with waiting and
because
having the
Scotland's
debate
on
now?
pause. If Nicola's the Deputy First Minister, Alex Salmond's the First Minister, her whole raison d'etre in politics is to tear Scotland out of the United Kingdom. Is she going to take the difficult decisions in government that might imperil her
I take
support?
difficult decisions in government every single day. We keep hearing rubbish from the other parties about economic uncertainty. The Institute of Directors in Scotland have said that is rubbish. I've got a long list of companies that are investing in Scotland. Scotland is doing well.
Man in the second row here.
Independence,
You,
and I
sir.
look forward to the referendum.
Why doesn't the UK government encourage Scotland to take independence? And then on their Independence Day, why don't we have a national holiday so we can celebrate the fact we don't have to subsidise Scotland anymore?
Listen, I don't...
Justine Greening,
Well, I think our
do you believe we subsidise Scotland?
I think our United Kingdom is stronger together than if we see Scotland sail off into the sunset.
Do you believe we subsidise Scotland, which is the point that he wanted celebrated if it comes to an end?
I think at the end of the day, we have a single economy. I think we both benefit in terms of trade between Scotland and England. I do want to see us stick together, but I do think a lot of people, as the gentleman said at the back, are slightly confused about how come Alex Salmond feels so passionate about independence, but doesn't seem to want to get on with it. And what we've done this week is to say, right, we're going to consult on how we can remove a key legal barrier that might mean the referendum might not be legal. We're going to consult on how we can make sure it's legal, decisive, but also fair. But I do think it's time that Scottish people had their say sooner rather than later. And I think the reason for that is that business is in danger of being harmed in Scotland. And the CBI in Scotland is saying that, and I think it's intuitive. If you've got such a fundamental question facing the country that you're interested in investing in or that you already operate in, you're bound to wonder what your plans ought to be going forward if you don't know what the situation will be.
The man there on the right.
I think the argument for Scotland to remain in the United Kingdom is eminently winnable in 2012. The problem we have in Scotland just now in the Scottish Parliament is we don't have anyone credible to articulate it. David Cameron is certainly not the man to articulate it. And until we find someone who does, the SNP will continue in this fashion, delaying until the resentment of a Tory government is at its maximum in 2014, and then try and use that opportunity to try and get a vote.
But then people like Douglas Alexander have gone down to Westminster and not fought
this is a
in
problem.
Edinburgh. You'd rather he went up there, would you? Paddy Ashdown, yes.
Well,
you go.
I mean, look, I have... The answer to Xanthi's question is who would suffer most? The answer is we both would. I mean, look, I've had some experience of separatist movements who break up their country, and it's not a happy one. And my view is that we are immensely strong.
Bosnia-Herzegovina
We
you're
are
talking
immensely...
about,
I'm not going to draw comparisons, but I've just had some experience in those kind of areas, and I can tell you it's not a happy circumstance. The thing about today is to learn to work together, not break apart. And the truth of it is that we are immensely stronger together, immensely stronger than we would be apart.
What way?
Worries...
What way?
Well, look,
What way?
the United Kingdom stands much taller as a United Kingdom than it would as a... Look, Kelvin, I have to tell you, I'm as opposed to little Englanders as I am to little Scotlanders, frankly. I'm a Great Britain man, and I believe we stand taller in this country and the world. We do better if we stand together than we break apart. Yeah. Now, that's a very simple concept. Now, what I want to get on to, if I can, because we've just sort of tended towards this part of the argument, this debate is going to develop. It's the most important debate we have had in Britain, constitutional debate, for 300 years. Now, the people who are going to make this decision are the Scottish people alone, with speaking with their sovereign voice. But it is right that the rest of Great Britain has a part in this, and the United Kingdom Prime Minister has a part in it too, and there's a legal position that Justine's talked about. What worries me is that this debate has now got off at a very, very bad pace. We've got two high-pressure egos here who are fighting each other on the television screens. By the way, let's recognise this, that as well as being the biggest debate in our constitutional future, this is also a very high-profile debate between two... This is high noon. Only one of these two men is going to be standing at the end. Mr Cameron cannot continue as Prime Minister of Great Britain if he loses, and in my view, Mr Salmon can't continue as Prime Minister of Scotland.
So the coalition's not handling it right, in your view, Paddy, is that right?
No, hang on.
And
I
what part...
want to answer this gentleman's question.
Well, hang on, you're answering your own questions as you go along. What is the...
Well, if you don't want me to make the point at all...
No, fine,
So
I do.
the gentleman was asking who now has handled this right. In my view, the answer to that is Michael Moore. He has taken what I thought was a rather bungled launch of this, frankly, by the Prime Minister over the weekend and by Mr Osborne, and brought this down to the level of statesmanship. We now need to discuss not who will win the referendum, but how can we give the Scottish people the benefit of a referendum that is quick, because you need to answer that question quickly, that is fair, in other words, it's overseen by the right body, and that is decisive. Now, if David will allow me, I'll try and address those three questions.
Well, no, hang on a second.
Well,
I'll come back to you, Paddy, because you've had quite a long...